Good evening, members. I'll start off by reading the webcasting introduction, and I would like to remind everyone present that this hybrid meeting will be broadcast live to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or other such use by third parties. Therefore, by participating in this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images in sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. If any public speakers on MS Teams do not wish to have their image captured, they should ensure that their video setting throughout the meeting is turned off and set to audio only. Please also be aware that if any technical difficulties interrupt the meeting that cannot be overcome, I may need to adjourn the meeting. And members are reminded to activate their microphones before speaking and switching them on once they're done. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Area Plan South on Wednesday, 13th September 2023. I'm your chairman, Councillor Casrisary from Chigwell Village. To my right, I have Councillor Baldwin as my vice chair, Laura Kerman from Democratic Services, Becky Morton as the webcasting officer, and to my left, I have James Rogers from Planning, and I will be a voting chairman if necessary. Moving on to agenda item 2, which is advice to public and speakers attending the council planning subcommittees. It's general advice for noting, which is on pages 5 and 6 of your agenda pack. And moving on to item 3, apologies for absence, Laura.
Apologies for absence has been received from Councillors Bob and Judy Jennings, Councillor Jogia, Councillor Mead, Councillor Stephen Murray, Councillor Owen, Councillor Surti Patel, Councillor Caroline Pond, Councillor Williamson, and Councillor Williamson. That's it, Chair.
Thank you very much. And moving on to item 4, declarations of interest. Councillor Singer.
Chairman, item number 9, I have had dealings with the applicant in the past, so it'd be wise for me to step out of the meeting.
Okay. Councillor Wixley.
Thank you, Chairman. If you just bear with me a minute, I've got some IT problems. So, I've got a declaration of interest to make.
Should we come back to you? Anybody else in the meanwhile? Councillor Bannott.
Agenda item, the application number 1. The applicant is known to me, is a constituent, and I have visited her previously, but it is a non-pecuniary interest.
Would you mind just clarifying? Is it item 8?
It's Chase Lane, Chigwell.
Yeah. So EPF 299/21. Anybody else? Councillor Morgan?
Sorry.
Or Councillor Wixley, shall we come back to you and then...
Yeah, it's item 12, EPF, stroke 1547, stroke 2369 Churchill. I know one of the objectors by virtue of a previous site visit to that application site.
Councillor.
Exactly the same, Chairman, as Councillor Wixley's. It's in no sense prejudicial, and I shall remain in and, if necessary, vote on the application.
Noted. Councillor Morgan, did you have a declaration of interest?
Item number 13. I was at the parish committee meeting when this was discussed. I didn't vote on it and didn't discuss it all with them. I was late, but just to let you know that I was there.
Noted. Anybody else? Councillor Gabbett, just in time, any declarations of interest that you'd like to make? No. Perfect. Okay, moving on to agenda item 5, which is minutes, and to confirm the minutes of the last meeting of the subcommittee held on 16th of August. Can we take those as agreed? Agreed. Okay, and item 6, which is any other business, Laura?
No other business, Chair.
Great. So moving on to item 7, site visits. Councillor Sunga. Got any mics on?
Brilliant. Thank you, Councillor Lyon. Chairman, item number 13, EPF 210922. I'm one of the ward councillors along with yourself. I'd like to propose a site visit, given the fact that this particular site sits in the location it sits on. I think it would warrant, and the members would actually benefit from having a site visit, especially it's very close to the Chigwell Primary School as well, and some other development sites coming forward as well. So I would like to propose a site visit to that site. Thank you.
Okay. I think I'd like to second that. As the other ward councillor, I do feel it's a very prominent location. It's a very busy junction, and it will be important for members to get an idea of the kind of the surrounding areas, as well as probably the traffic congestions and sort of any other neighbouring developments. Councillor Lyon, did you want to add anything else in?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to add that there has been some contentious issues around parking round by the Chigwell Primary School, or Primary Academy,
Yeah.
and other sites there. So I think this would actually be very worthwhile.
I
Are you
think
seconding it,
yeah.
or would you like me to second it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to second it. I'm sure you are as well. But I was going to say we owe it to the residents because of the fact that, you know, it's something which has been flagged up over and over again. And I think from a planning point of view, it would be really important for members to understand. Yeah. So can we take a vote on that, members, for a site visit for application EPF 210922? All those in favour?
(13), Chair.
Yeah. Okay. So that application will be deferred and... Sorry. All those against, sorry. And any abstentions? Two? Okay. So yeah, so that application will be deferred pending a site visit and will be brought back to the committee at a subsequent meeting. Councillor Bannon, sorry, did you want to...
May I propose a site visit to, in relation to EPF 2999/21? This piece of land, it's quite hidden, and it's not a piece of land that councillors may ordinarily come across unless they are consciously looking for it. I do apologise. I know there are some speakers who've come today, and it's not my intention to bring everyone out to Epping. But there are references in the report to, you know, the volume and the footprint, and I really do feel that councillors would benefit from seeing the proposals in person. So, I mean, subject to the committee and their thoughts, that's my proposal.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that site visit? Yep, Councillor Lyon. Okay, I'm happy to take a vote on it. So all those in favour of a site visit for application EPF 299921, please show.
6 for.
All those against?
4 against.
And any abstentions?
I've misadded. Sorry.
Should we...
Can we do abstentions again, please?
Abstentions?
No. I've misadded. Sorry, could you do the vote again, check, please?
Yeah, so all those in favour of the site visit, please show.
Yep. 6.
All those against?
5 against.
And any abstentions?
4.
Okay, so I think, again, that application will be deferred pending a site visit and will be brought back to a subsequent committee meeting. Any applicants, any speakers on either of those two applications, you're most welcome to stay for the meeting, but if you wanted to leave, that's also completely understandable. Okay, so moving on to our first application of the evening, which is agenda item 9, EPF 0947/23, 227 High Road, Loughton, IG10 1BB, and I'll hand over to our planning officers to present.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, everybody. So yes, item 9 is 0947/23, which is the last post-public house in Loughton High Road. The proposal is for the material change of use of the pub into a flexible planning use for a pub and restaurant. The proposals before members tonight, due to an objection from Loughton Town Council and neighbours and officers, are recommending planning permission is granted. So just starting with the location, as I say, it is located on Loughton High Road and is a very well-known pub in the local area. These are the elevations and floor plans of the building. The proposal seeks permission, as I said at the start, to essentially create a flexible use for the pub. So it will include its existing use as a pub, but will introduce a restaurant use as well. So these combined uses together fall under a new use class, so a sui generis use class. So in other words, a class of its own. It cannot or it will not be able to change into another use class from that without requiring planning permission. The idea of diversifying the uses of a well-known establishment will assist in its long-term future in this town centre location, which will support its vitality and viability moving forward. The existing use is well established, as members will know. However, it is important to safeguard the living conditions of neighbours, and that can be done effectively through an hours of operation condition, which is proposed. And this will be between the hours of, so it won't be allowed to be open outside the hours of 9 a.m. to 11 p.m, and that's from Monday through to Sunday and includes bank holidays. So all of that, in the final analysis, by supporting this business to flourish, it will support the vitality and viability of the town centre as a whole, and it is recommended that planning permission is granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rogers. So we have one speaker on this item, which is an objector, Mr. Scott Crawford, who is joining us on Teams. Mr. Crawford, you have 3 minutes, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Good evening. Can you hear us?
Yep.
Great, thank you. I'm Scott Crawford, resident at 15 Primary Road in Loughton. That building at 227 High Road was a post office. In 1993, the owners applied for a change of use to pub, and the planning committee, after noticing the lack of parking provided by the location itself and the residences close by, decided on a compromise. They decided to grant the application with the restriction that the pub would never operate after 11 p.m. They did not rely upon licensing rules, nor did they say that the restriction would expire. They granted this change of use, and it is a generous, radical change of use from post office to pub, with a restriction meant to protect the residents in perpetuity. We, the nearby residents, experienced disorderly behavior and noise as a result of this establishment, but it is kept manageable for 3 key reasons. First, the 11 p.m. closing restriction. Second, the restrictions preventing usage of the outdoor spaces on both sides of the premises. And third, because the previous pub had a policy of not playing music. Over the years, the owners have made repeated applications to loosen the restrictions on hours or on outdoor expansion, and our councillors have always held firm. The restrictions made sense when they were imposed, and they make sense now. Is the applied for change of use from pub to a combination of pub and or restaurant a sneaky way to get around these restrictions at last? I would like to thank our planning officers for spotting that possibility and recommending the existing restrictions remain in force. However, we should go one step further. The previous operator did not play music, but that does not mean that the next one would not. The noise and disturbance of such an establishment could still cause plenty of problems before 11 p.m. So in addition to preserving the restrictions recommended by our planning officers, we should add a prohibition on music at this establishment as a good faith way to ensure that the use is in fact for a restaurant or a pub and not, God help us, for a noisy club in disguise. Councillors, planning restrictions were needed in 1993 to protect the residents, and since that time the housing on our high street has increased, not decreased. We need your help to ensure that sensible restrictions remain in place to protect the residents, no matter how flexible the commercial use might become. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crawford. I don't think we have any other speakers on this application, so I'll open up to the committee. We've got one of the ward councillors present this evening. Councillor Kaufman, did you want to start off by saying anything?
Thank you, Chairman. So it's a difficult one to kick off with, unfortunately, this evening, because I think we must try and support the high street. We know that pubs on their own are not really viable. This pub already did sell food. A large part of its offer, both lunchtime and I think early evening, was food related. So I'm not against that, because I think in a way it's a continued use of what it was before. So I'm leaning to support this application, provided we are really strict with various items that we can control. And I don't know if they are within the remit of this committee to control, because we have a terrible example of what's happened to Loughton High Street with another establishment, which we cannot control, subject to appeal. Illegal buildings have been built. We have been unable to stop it. Music is played. We've been unable to stop it. And it's absolutely caused a nightmare for the residents. And there are quite a lot of objections, people living in Priory Road particularly, who are concerned because there are other establishments which have encroached. So it's this issue of our residents rubbing up against commercial uses on the high street. We have to have a thriving high street. At the moment, it's on its knees. So we have to try and get this working. So yes, I think, providing I can be assured that the restrictions that outside space, the yard, does not come into use, that music cannot be heard outside the building, that we can control the opening hours, then I think I would support it, but I would need to be reassured that the residents' concerns are taken into account via this committee. But I'm really interested to hear what other members say.
Yeah, and I think I sort of kind of echo what you say, which is, you know, we need to be very, very mindful when making a decision that actually some of the conditions that are listed are, you know, clearly enforceable and very, very obvious as part of this application. I'll just revert back to Mr. Rogers just to sort of summarise conditions 3, 5 and 6, which I think they're pretty self-explanatory, but they do touch on what Councillor Coughlin has said.
Yeah, that's right. We are also mindful of the living conditions of neighbours. We know that there has been some antisocial behaviour reported on this site in the past. I think the opening hours, I mean, that's a standardised condition that is easily enforceable. For the other two, yeah, I mean, again, not having takeaways sales from the application site is going to be really important as well, because that can be quite disruptive, particularly late into the evening. But if members feel that further conditions are required in terms of other aspects, in noise, for example, then that can be something that can be added if necessary.
Councillor Lyon, if you wanted to come in, and then.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to check, because there's a distinction between planning permission and licensing, and I think this is bordering on both. So I don't know whether the officer can update us on exactly what we're talking about here, because a lot of the things, noise and opening hours, are restricted by licensing. So perhaps he could inform us a bit more.
Yeah, quite right. So it is covered by other legislation too, environmental health and licensing in particular, but it is also controllable through the planning system as well. And as I say, these are quite standard conditions for establishments like this, which have a number of residents around them. So it's sort of belt and braces in a sense, just to make sure that there isn't going to be that harm that could otherwise occur.
Councillor Chris Bond.
The point which was made by the ward member about noise, I think, is a very cogent one. The objector said quite rightly that Wetherspoons did not permit music. That was one saving grace to the operation, which I think was, on the whole, despite a few niggles, very responsibly conducted. But I would suggest the condition about extraneous noise, no noise should be audible from without the premises, and there's normally a standard condition on that. The other point I wanted to raise was the question of tables and chairs outside the premises. We've dealt with the service yard car park, and that, I think, condition is fairly clear and very welcome. But the operators of this pub had a number of tables and chairs outside the front entrance, which did cause annoyance by virtue of noise and general rowdy behaviour to the occupiers opposite, of which there are, as somebody said, now many more than in 1993 when this was erected. And there was a rumour, and it was only a rumour, that the previous operators wanted to extend the tables and chairs to outside the delivery area. Not inside it, because that was precluded, but outside it. And so I think if we can do so, we should institute a condition preventing patrons of either of the establishments, because of course there could be more than one, from occupying the pavements either outside the premises themselves or the delivery area. With that, I'm content to see it go through.
Yeah.
Just to say that that condition could be added if members feel it's necessary.
Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, it's just a thought, Chairman, but the hours of operation up to 11 p.m, as I understand it, but of course there could be disturbance in terms of clearing up, by the staff. I just wondered if it's possible to have a condition which ensures that all activity at the pub / restaurant should finish by a certain time.
Yeah, I think it's a really relevant point, isn't it? Because it says in condition 3 that the public house and restaurant use shall not be open for business between the hours of 11 and 9. But I suppose there's nothing which would stop people gathering or congregating in and around the establishment. So, Mr. Rogers, is there anything that we're able to do to modify that condition?
It comes down to it's about reason, and I think it's reasonable for it not to be open outside those hours, because obviously there could be disturbance or people leaving the site or mass, etc. That can cause a lot of trouble. I don't think it would be reasonable to do that if the business decides they want to use those hours to clean up or to sort things out for the next day. Then a condition, as mentioned, could stop that from happening, and to me that doesn't seem reasonable. So, I would leave that to members, but it would not be a condition that I would recommend at all.
Did you want to come back in, Councillor Wixley?
Well, no, I understand that point, but I was questioning. I just wondered if there should be a limit on the time allowed to clean up and prepare for the next day. That's all. I don't know if that's possible to condition it. I admit it's probably a difficult area.
Noted. Councillor Enrique?
Thank you, Chairman. I think to add to the conditions, and I think it would be more of a condition that restricts any noisy activity within the premises after the hours. Maybe waste collections, anything that is noisy that will affect neighbours.
The only thing I'd say to that is that if we have a condition about audible noise outside the premises where the disturbance could happen to neighbours, that in a sense encapsulates that. So then if somebody is cleaning up and plays a little bit of music inside, they can still do that without technically being in breach of that condition. As long as it's not audible to residents, etc., then that condition is going to be effective for that purpose, would be my comments.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so I think, members, we can move to a vote. The officer's recommendation is for approval. So if we can please show all those in favour of the officer's recommendation or with the added conditions. Yeah. All those in favour with those two added conditions?
Can I just ask, are you adding a noise condition? Because that was not in the officer's proposal.
Yes, we've recommended Mr. Crawford for the two additional conditions. One is for an additional condition about no audible noise outside of the establishment, and then the second one was about equipment, chairs and paraphernalia outside as well. So limiting that as well. So can we move to a vote? Yeah. Do you want to vote on the Okay, as a point of order, can we take a vote on those two additional conditions? So all those in favour, please show.
Unanimous.
Thank you. And if we move to a formal vote on the officer's recommendation, which is for approval, so all those in favour with those additional conditions, please show.
Unanimous.
Okay. So that application has been granted. Moving on to agenda item 10, which is EPF 0979/23, 16 Stanmore Way, Loughton, IG10 2SA, and I will hand over to our officers to present the application.
Thank you, Chairman. So yes, item 10 is 19 Stanmore Way in Loughton. So the proposal is for the demolition of the existing dwelling that's on the site and for the erection of a replacement. Applications before you tonight for due to an objection from Loughton Town Council and a neighbour, and officers are recommending that planning permission is granted. So starting with the site, the application site is located on the southern side of Stanmore Way, which is just off Goldings Hill, which is just off the map within Loughton. So currently on the site is this dwelling here with a large flat roof dormer in the roof space. The proposal is to demolish the existing dwelling and to erect this dwelling in its place. This is the outline of it. You can clearly see that the overall footprint is comparable to its neighbours and indeed the rest of this part of Stanmore Way as well. In terms of its design, members can see it has some rather conventional elements, typical of a suburban style design with gable roof profiles, some hip profiles as well. And this is the proposed rear elevation. There'll be a balcony at first floor level, but privacy screens are shown on those drawings, which will be provided to prevent significant overlooking onto the neighbouring dwellings. Now, this is a proposed section drawing that just illustrates that this does include a basement. A basement impact assessment was submitted in accordance with our policy, which concluded the proposal can be implemented without affecting the neighbouring properties. And then just for your information as well, this section just makes it clear it's only at the front part of the site is the basement. And then finally, this drawing, it just shows a proposed 1.8 metre high fence, a gate and railings. Now, these have already been approved through a previous planning application in 2022, so these are effectively already committed in terms of development. So in summary, just going back to the overall design, it's concluded that this is a conventional style of residential property which would not cause harm to the character and appearance of the street scene or to the living conditions of neighbours. So it is therefore recommended that planning permission is granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. And we have one speaker on this application, which is the applicant's agent, Mr. Matthew Hardcastle, who is on Teams. Mr. Hardcastle, if you'd like to unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Matthew Hardcastle of Hardcastle Architects. I'm the agent for the application. Thanks for letting me speak on behalf of the applicant this evening. All of the salient points are well covered in the case officer report, but I'd just like to address a few points from the report and the consultation objections. The first point is ridge height. The case officer report mentions that the proposed ridge height is slightly higher than the existing 2022 approval. But to clarify, the ground floor level has been slightly lowered to be level with the surrounding ground level, which allows the floor to ceiling heights to be slightly increased. But the ridge and the eaves height of this proposal and the existing 2022 approval are the same. Second point is the front railings. An objection to the front railings was made in the consultation, stating that the railings and gates would be wholly out of character with this part of Stanmore Way. When if you walk along Stanmore Way, the frontages are quite varied, ranging from fully open to fully enclosed with high fences and hedges. Number 12 is 2 houses along from the application site and has similar railings and gates. And other properties along Stanmore Way have similar railings and gates. The railings were also included in the 2022 planning approval. Now, the third and last point I'd like to address is the demolition of the existing dwelling. At early stages in the project, I discussed and looked at various options with the householder to extend the existing dwelling in a way that met their requirements to accommodate their growing family. Unfortunately, a good amount of the existing ground floor consists of a very poorly built extension that is not possible to reuse due to the inadequate ground floor slab, half brick walls and flat roof. The existing first floor consists of small bedrooms with a constrained roof space and low sloping ceilings. That's very difficult to retain if the dwelling is to be extended in any meaningful way. The existing 2022 approval retained as much of the existing property as possible, whilst meeting the family's requirements. Following the approval, when we started looking at the detailed design, when all of the difficulties of the partial demolition and propping and the compromised retrofitting of the retained elements to bring them up to current standards were taken into account, it became apparent that not enough of the existing building fabric remained to warrant its retention. So the loss of the small amount of remaining fabric of the existing dwelling will be offset by the new dwelling being constructed to the current rigorous building standards. That includes high levels of fabric insulation, low air leakage, renewable power source via the rooftop PV panels, low water usage, electric vehicle charging that is required for new build dwellings. And just to clarify, the existing approval referred to is, it was last year and it was for a very similar proposal to what's before you this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we don't have any other speakers on this application, and I don't think we have any Loughton St John's members present this evening, but Councillor Chris Pond.
Yes, Councillor Caroline Pond has discussed this with me, so apologises that she can't be here today. I think we think that the difference between this and the already consented scheme is marginal. And so I don't think it would be sensible to go to the stake in objecting to it. So I'm not proposing to propose refusal. However, I do want to draw attention to the point made by the Town Council Planning Committee about embodied carbon. It will, I think, be inconceivable in a few years' time that we should release the amount of embodied carbon in the existing building. And I know this is not in the plan, and I know it is not in government planning law at the moment, but I think it is inconceivable that within a few years it will not be. So when our planning officers are having pre-application discussions with applicants, I think they should mention that members of the committee are really concerned about this, and any alleviation by reusing existing buildings is much to be desired. But having said that, I'm not proposing to vote against it.
Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just see the floor plans again, particularly the first floor plan? Is that possible? Yeah, because there's reference to a terrace on the back elevation, which I can't easily read. So I can see it there, but is that, what actually is that? Is it, can you walk out of those doors and stand on a terrace? Yeah. Where is the terrace? Because it doesn't seem to be shown on the section. Oh, it's that bit there.
That's it there.
Okay. Because that does not exist in the existing house. So I'm just concerned that that will lead to overlooking. There has been some mention of side screens. And so I can't see the height that they are meant to be, but we don't generally encourage external terracing because that does give you the ability to look over the neighbour. Not that you're going to do it, but you might. And so I'm not sure if that's good enough. I rely on the officer's report, but I believe that should be screened. But somebody could easily stand on that and look over there, and they've got a bird's eye view. And so are we happy with that? I don't know the height of that balcony, the railing, and the neighbours aren't here to object, so we have to do it or be concerned for them if that is an overlooking issue that currently does not exist.
I think it depends on the circumstances as to whether or not balconies are acceptable, because obviously, as you say, it does give generally a greater opportunity to look into the neighbour's property. That's just a fact. The way that the applicant has looked to mitigate it in this case is through these privacy screens. I don't have the exact height of those in front of me. They look about 1.7 or 1.8 metres in height. What members could do is request details of those to be submitted and agreed prior to this being occupied, the new dwelling being occupied, if members are concerned about that. But whether or not it's a question that's down to members as to whether or not, if I just go back to the block plan, whether or not the character of this area, the nature of this, where the neighbours are situated, whether or not that terrace will cause excessive overlooking with those privacy screens that will be in place. But as I say, you can request details of those to be agreed if that is of a concern.
I think it's also listed in the conditions with condition 7, which says obviously prior to the use of the balcony, privacy screens shall be implemented. But I agree, I think it would naturally cause an overlooking effect on the neighbours either side. Did anybody else want to come in? Councillor Wixley and then Councillor Unger.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. In respect of thinking of the neighbours, I can't see a condition limiting the working time on the construction. And likewise, this development is probably going to generate a lot of mud, so I'm going to request my usual condition that it should be wheel washing facilities. So if the committee's agreed, I'd like those two conditions added, but that's in the hands of the chairman, so that's my request.
Yeah. Can we move a motion to take a vote on the two additional conditions that Councillor Wixley has said, and then we can resume the debate? So, yeah, or we can do it at the end if preferable. So, Councillor Sanger, sorry, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chairman. I think sometimes it's nice to support applications where they're appropriate. I think apart from the fact that the roof ridge height's been increased, I'm not sure if that has been increased on this application, whether it was the same for the previous one that was granted, but I don't have any objections to this. I think with those conditions attached, we should move forward. Thank you.
Councillor Chris Pond, did you want to come back in?
Sorry, Chairman, just wanted to disaggregate some of the conditions, but I may have misunderstood them, so I'll no doubt be told by Mr. Rogers if I have. I have never been in this house, but I have been in the house called High Winters in Clays Lane, which backs on. It's only about 50 feet from this site, so I am slightly worried about the overlooking. But I thought I had seen a landscaping condition, but I can't find it unless this is referred to in condition 12 about the arboricultural reports, because I think we have to try to maintain the tree cover to separate High Winters from this house, but maybe that is covered in condition number 12. I'm not sure.
Yeah, condition 12 requires for those trees, shrubs and hedges that are shown to be retained, so it will require their protection. And indeed number 13 as well, tree protection shall be installed as shown on the plan as well. for that purpose, just to make sure that everything's retained.
I'm sorry, the way I read 12 and 13 might be completely wrong, is that that is for the protection of the trees rather than the utility of the trees as a screening device between the two properties. And I wonder if that could be added in by a slight tweak to the condition number 12.
So how would that condition read? Because
I think it would say something like the existence of tree screening between the two properties shall be maintained on the basis of an on a landscaping report to be submitted to the local planning authority and agreed in advance.
okay, so the only comment I'd make about that is that there is no guarantee that landscaping will be retained in the long term. So yeah, we can do it to a certain degree, but what we shouldn't do is to rely on that sort of thing to ensure there's no harm to neighbours. So whilst we should give it weight that yes, there's screening there in terms of this, if that screening were not there, because thinking about that in the long term, if this the screening does get damaged, destroyed outside of these years, that if it does lead to that harm, it should be refused. But what what officers are saying in terms of this application is that that balcony is in such a position, and these privacy screens would ensure that there won't be any such overlooking. So I would recommend against changing that condition in that way.
Anybody else? Councillor Wixley, did you want to come back and vote?
Yeah, I just wanted to know where we were with the proposal that I put forward, because we didn't actually have a vote on it.
Yeah, I think we'll come to a vote once the debate is concluded, and I think if there's nobody else that wants to add anything in, then shall we move to a vote on the two additional conditions that Councillor Wixley has proposed? So all those in favour, if you can please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Excellent. And I think for the formal vote on the application, so the officer's recommendation is for approval. All those in favour with the two additional conditions, please show.
14.
All those against?
0.
And any abstentions?
1 abstention.
Okay, so that application has been approved. Moving on to agenda item 11, which is EPF 1399/23, 39 Albion Hill, Loughton IG10 4RD. And I'll hand over to our planning officer, Mr. Rahman, who I believe is on Teams.
Thank you, Chair. So item 11 relates to 39 Albion Hill in Loughton. This application was deferred from the last meeting for a member site visit. This site visit took place last Thursday. The proposal is for a landscaping scheme, including an outdoor swimming pool, a decking area, and front grass terraces, which I'll show now on the slides. So here's the location plan of the site outlined in red. Here's an aerial view. So as part of this application, these are the front boundary terraces, which are included in this application. So I'm not sure how clear that is, but this is one of the walls over here. And then the second one over here. Then you got the decking area over here, along with the swimming pool over here. So here's the proposed site plan. So again, this is a closer view. So here's the front boundary wall. over here, and then the second one at a higher level over here. And then you've got the decking area all over here, and the swimming pool over here. So this also includes the proposed landscaping scheme. Here's a different angle of the proposal. So you can see the wall over here. The decking and the swimming pool. There is a swimming pool at the neighboring property over here. Here's a different angle. So here are the close-up views of the front boundary, proposed works. So you got the lowest boundary wall over here, and then the second one at a high level over here. And this image here is the view from the street. So it's not readily visible from the street other than the views from the driveway. So here's the view of the swimming pool. So that's the swimming pool over here. And then you'll have the decking area all across here. Here's a view from the neighbor to the rear, number 4 High View Close. This is the view from the rear garden. So you've got the main building over here. You've got the swimming pool just behind this wall over here. Just to summarize the merits of the scheme, firstly, the proposed works at the front, they are acceptable in design terms. The swimming pool in officer's view is permitted development. And lastly, the proposed landscaping scheme was found acceptable by the council's tree team, and members will note conditions 3 and 4. It has a 4-month time frame for implementation. On that basis, officer recommendation is to grant conditional planning permission. Thank you, Chair. Over to members.
Thank you very much. And we have one speaker on this item, which is an objector, Mr. Martin Ward, who is in the chambers. Mr. Ward, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So my name's Martin Ward. We live at number 4 Highview Close, which is directly behind 39 Albion Hill. Our objections submitted to the planning application 1399-23 are one of privacy and being severely overlooked due to the overdevelopment and breaches of planning of the property. The development of 39 Albion Hill has been ongoing since 2019, when conditional planning was granted by the council. As a council aware, there are still several serious outstanding breaches of the planning conditions. A number of these breaches directly affect us and our neighbours in Highview Close. These works completed without planning consent include removal of trees, increased height of the property by circa 1.5 metres to accommodate loft rooms and Velux windows, rendering of the property, which has been painted white, additional groundworks, additional windows, balconies, flat roof, and additional rooms to the front of the property. If this application is granted, the owners of 39 Albion Hill will not be able to replace the tree line and screen their property from ours, as the swimming pool, which is already built, is so close to the overheight boundary wall, leaving no room for replanting of mature trees and shrubs that they have removed. Outlined in ENF 8821, the owners have blatantly ignored the arboricultural planning report by Tracy Clark. In the conditions of the planning approval, a number of trees on our boundary were identified to have tree protection installed prior to the commencement of the development activities. These trees are all established and over 4 metres tall, screening our property from the neighbouring property. This is stated in an email from Mr. Raymond dated the 17th of Feb 2020. Tree protection shall be installed as shown on Tracy Clark's tree consultancy drawing. These trees were mature and some were evergreen and created a boundary screen between our houses. However, rather than protect the trees, the owner has cut all of the trees down when the work started. So a major concern is that the current application does not show any replacement of the trees along the border and cannot, if granted, as there is no room to plant due to the already built pool and the proximity to the boundary wall. This application also requested the removal of one of the remaining mature trees to be replaced by a much smaller one. To protect our privacy and the owner's privacy, we would expect the replacement of mature trees along our boundary with something similar to the trees that were there previously and certainly an amount of evergreen. The situation currently exists where we can see directly into the owner's toilet when the light's turned on. This is extremely embarrassing and inappropriate for us. Approval of this application will simply prevent the owners to be able to replace the tree line and in effect give them approval not to do so due to the position of the pool. We therefore expect this application not to be considered on its own but alongside the other outstanding breaches. And thanks to the committee for hearing that and also thanks for the site visit.
Thank you. We have one of the ward members present who is the Vice Chairman, Councillor Baldwin, if you wanted to start off the discussion.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm the ward councillor. Yeah, I called this in because you know there've been many breaches of planning, and this is one outstanding enforcement notice at the moment. The main thing is that the swimming pool and the which is very close to the border with the residents at Highview Close, it's very close, and that was only possible because of the removal of the tree line, as the objector has said, the removal of the tree line, which was went against the conditions of a previous permission of EPF 027720. Okay, and without the breach of that permission and the removal of those trees, it would not have been possible to build a 2-foot high wall and the swimming pool so close to the border. So I know that we can only deal with the application which is in front of us, and I think there is an application coming forward for the various changes that have been done to the house. So that's going to be a separate application, and that should be coming forward. But on this particular application, the objection is the effect on the amenity of the residents in Highview Close, and again the removal of the trees so that there is no, there's absolutely overlooking line of sight from Highview Close. And I think that's probably the other thing. The landscaping scheme to the side and to the front of the property, I don't have any great objection to the landscaping scheme. So maybe I'll open things up. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Wicks.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I also would like to express my thanks to the planning officer who arranged the site visit, which was mostly informative, and I think it's one of the benefits of a site visit that you sort of realise things that you may not have realised otherwise. I think the objector has put the case very well, and likewise my colleague Councillor Baldwin. This is a strange situation because I think it's a matter of process, and if this application was approved tonight, my question would be what impact would that have on the what I understand is a planning enforcement issue. It's already been mentioned that some trees have been removed, and if this application is approved tonight, it would be hard to see under planning enforcement that those trees could be replaced, because there's limited space to do that between the swimming pool, which is under construction, and the wall that's been built. So it seems to me that the planning enforcement issue should have been dealt with first, and then the planning application followed it. So it's a very, you know, I'm thinking of chicken and eggs and the coach before the horses situation. I certainly couldn't support this because of what I've seen at the site visit and my understanding. If my understanding is wrong, then perhaps the officer can correct me, but that's my understanding of the situation.
Councillor Pond?
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is a very strange one because as I understand it, the digging of a swimming pool is permitted development. But associated development such as terracing, decking and filter houses and so forth, the changing rooms, are not. I think there is no doubt that the quiet and private enjoyment of their gardens and the amenity of the neighbours backing onto this site, Highview Close, has been greatly adversely affected. And I think that is inadmissible, and I would therefore suggest refusal of this application on that ground, and also on the ground that it would prevent restitution of tree cover to provide adequate separation between the gardens. So quite frankly, I see no merits in this application.
Councillor Allgood?
Yes, thank you. I was going to say Councillor Wixley has asked the same question, but I don't think it's been answered. If we approve this planning application, what is the situation then if the tree request gets enforced?
I can answer that.
Yes, I was going to say, Mr. Rahman, if you wouldn't mind answering that one.
Just going to share my screen as well. So as part of this application, it does include a revised landscaping scheme. So if members do grant permission tonight, you would be granting this revised landscaping scheme. So yeah, there's no trees shown along this boundary over here. This is the tree which would be replaced by a smaller tree. And you've got the remainder of the trees which would be retained. Yeah. So this is the new landscaping scheme which, if permission is granted tonight, this is what they have to implement within the 4-month time frame.
Okay. I think that's most helpful, Mr. Rahman. Thank you very much. Councillor Wixley, did you want to come back in very quickly?
Well, that's all very well, but from what I saw and what has already been stated, there is no longer sufficient room between the swimming pool and the wall that's been constructed to reinstate tree cover there. So if we vote for this, it's got to be a different scheme, but it doesn't allow for the reinstatement of trees along that boundary, which is the issue, because that's offering privacy to the people living in Highview Close. So to me, it's unacceptable.
Councillor Heap? Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Is the existence of the swimming pool in doubt? I mean, as in, we can't say take it away, can we?
I believe it enjoys permitted development rights, but I'll let Mr. Rahman just clarify that one.
I mean, it's part of the application, but in officer's view, it is permitted development.
Could I come back at all?
Yeah, Councillor Baldwin, if you wanted to come back in.
Yes, just to come back briefly, that I want to say that Councillor Wixley is quite right to say that if we approve this, this will prevent the re-establishment of the tree line of screening to the residents at Highview Close, because since the removal of the trees, a very, very large, imposing brick wall has been built. I don't quite know the height, I presume 2 metres, but maybe Mr. Rahman could clarify that. And also, I believe that the removal of the swimming pool would also be necessary to re-establish the tree line. So, yeah. So, yeah, could Mr. Rahman just qualify the height of the wall there?
May I move a motion to...
I would be interested, actually, just to establish the height of the brick wall. Sorry, Mr. Rahman, you were saying.
So from the site visit, it was clear that a lot of the ground has been removed. So when you're measuring the height of the wall, you have to take it from the highest point. So that's something that will have to be investigated. And yeah, at this stage, I can't tell you the exact height.
Fine. Sure. So I think we can probably go to a vote on this. So the officer's recommendation is to approve this application. Can I get a vote of all those in favour of the officer's recommendation?
0.
All those against?
13.
And any abstentions?
Councillor Gabbard, could I ask if you voted against or abstained? Sorry, it's 14.
Okay, 14 against and 1 abstention. So that application has been refused. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, can we clarify the reasons for...
Oh, sorry. So, yeah, so can we clarify the grounds for refusal? I think Councillor Baldwin, you mentioned...
Councillor Pond had...
the reasons for refusal... Right. The reasons for refusal would be, in my view, is very deleterious to the quiet and private enjoyment of the gardens and other amenities of neighbours in Highview Close. That's one. And number 2 is that the scheme would make it impossible to establish a treed boundary between Highview Close and 39 Albion Hill, as has been was it suggested in a condition, in a previous condition?
Yeah, previous condition.
Any other grounds for refusal? Councillor Morgan?
The loss of amenity, the overlooking, the removal of the TPOs.
Yep. I think if we take a vote, all those in favour of those conditions?
$14.
All those against?
0.
And any abstentions?
1.
Okay, so that application has been refused. So moving on to our final application of the evening, which is agenda item 12, EPF 1547/23, and that's 69 Churchill, Loughton, IG10 1QP. And if I hand over to our planning officer, Suki Dadwar, who's on Teams.
Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, Suki, just 1 minute.
Sorry, on a point of order, Mr. Chairman. This is, of course, a standalone application, as all the applications we've considered tonight are, and we properly can give attention only to what is before us. But I am wondering whether there is any kind of rule of practice or part of planning law that I'm imperfectly acquainted with that that tries to tot up, rather like points on your driving licence, of different planning applications and the ability to look at the totality of the likely effect. I'm not sure there is, but I thought I would ask.
I think, Mr. Rahman, if you wanted to possibly comment on Councillor Pond's suggestion there.
I mean,
otherwise we could, maybe.
I'll defer to Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, or Mr. Rogers, if maybe a response in writing might be a bit more appropriate.
I was hoping that wasn't going to come my way. As Councillor Rizvi says, perhaps if we respond in writing to you on that point, might be easier than me thinking of something from the top of my head right now.
You shouldn't preclude our considering this one.
The one that's about to be heard? No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, thank you. No, that's completely fine. If I hand over to... Sorry, Councillor Heath.
Sorry, tied into that should also be the number of times that an application is refused by an officer under S60C, whatever it is. Because there should be a totting up of that, so that after the third time it's been refused for no apparent change, then we should have a look at it to say whether it should continue.
Okay, noted. I think that's also a very sensible point. If I hand over to Suki, if you'd kindly present item 12, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So item 12 relates to 69 Church Hill. This application is seeking permission for a single-storey extension. The application is outlined in red and is located south of Church Hill. This application is before you today because it has a recommendation for approval which is contrary to the objection from the Town Council and local residents. The concerns raised are listed on pages 48 and 49 of the agenda. This proposal site is located towards the crest of Church Hill. It adjoins 73 Church Hill on its eastern boundary and 67A Church Hill on its western boundary. To the north are flats and to the south are rear gardens of properties fronting Uplands Road. This application shows the existing floor plans and proposed floor plans. This is the garden room which is subject to the application before you. There has already been approval for a two-storey front infill extension and extension to the reception room and hall, along with alterations to the roof so that it lines up with the ridge of the existing roof of the bungalow. The next slide is these are the existing elevations and section and proposed elevations and section. The proposal will result in an extension which measures 5.4 metres deep by 5.7 metres wide and 4.8 metres high to its crown roof. This is a proposed block plan of the site. The garden room is located on the southeastern corner of the bungalow. The design is in keeping with the appearance of the the bungalow, and it retains space around it to maintain the character of the surrounding area. So it's for these reasons that the proposal will have a neutral impact on the character and appearance of the surrounding area in accordance with policy DM9A and D of the local plan. This slide shows the existing and proposed street scenes. As you can see, the extension is 9.2 metres away from the front elevation of the house, the bungalow, sorry. Looking at the impact of the living conditions on neighbouring residents, there's a gap of 3 metres between the mutual boundary with number 73 Church Hill and the proposal. This neighbour is also on higher land. This is demonstrated by the photos on this slide. It's therefore considered that this neighbour will not be excessively affected in terms of loss of light, outlook, dominance or privacy, and all other neighbours are sufficiently distant to ensure that they will not be affected. Thank you, Chairman. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Suki. We have two speakers on this item, the first of which is one of the objectors, Stephen / Linda Dooley, who are here in person, I believe. Or not? Yep. You have 3 minutes.
Hello,
Linda.
good evening. My name is Linda Dooley and I reside at 73 Church Hill, next door to 69. I should like to state my objections to this proposal. I consider it to be out of keeping with the existing building. an overdevelopment of the site out of sympathy with the current property and a stealth encroachment on my privacy. It is intrusive and poorly sited. From my side, I should be faced with a solid brick wall, approximately 9 feet from my boundary, and almost as high as the existing house and extending beyond my building line. It should be noted that the rear of this garden room appears to be in line with what they consider to be an extension to my property. It is not. However, despite the implication given by the drawing, the structure outlined from my rear building line is, in fact, a polycarbonate patio cover supported within a wooden framework from the house to an external garden retaining wall. The proposed construction is described as a garden room and is virtually freestanding, but with a tenuous attachment to the corner of the existing property, with no door to the garden. As you can see from the plan, the car parking area is adjacent to the house, presumably hard-surfaced and properly drained, and in compliance with current planning regulations. To date, this area and the rear garden have been used as a builder's yard. Presumably, a change of use has been declared. In order to place this application into context, this is the 8th application lodged for development on this site since the present owner acquired the property in early 2017. 4 were lodged between August 2018 and October 2022, 1 being withdrawn, the other 3 being rejected, 2 of them by the Planning Inspectorate. The remaining 4 applications, of which the one under review is the latest, date from January to July this year, 1 every 2 months. Whilst we raised no objections to the first 3, as their objectives, although piecemeal in approach, was seen as a modest series of modifications, the overall scope of the scheme gave no cause to raise reasonable objections. However, the present application causes me considerable concern, as the proposal clearly goes beyond the remodelling of the earlier agreed applications and the modest increase in the footprint of the existing property within which they remain. Given the piecemeal approach being adopted and the uncertainty this engenders, I would ask the committee to firmly reject the current application and to request that when communicating with the applicant or his developers, that this approach in scope or intent relating to his final project objective is unreasonable and unacceptable, both in terms of abuse of the planning system and the effect of such approach on the neighbours.
Thank you very much. Your 3 minutes set up. Thank you. Thank you very much. If I can move on to Mr. Kevin O'Connor, who is the applicant's agent, who is also here in person. And Mr. Dooley, if you can please switch your microphone off. If you can. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair. I'm here as the agent for the applicants to make a brief statement in support of the scheme. This is a modest single-storey rear extension garden room, which is on lower ground than the adjacent property and some 3 metres distant from a garage. There's no loss of light, privacy or amenity to neighbours. The proposal has a neutral impact on the locality generally. As the planning case officer, planning department have concluded that the proposal is modest in scale, complies with both national and local planning policy, and neighbours will not be excessively affected in terms of loss of light, local outlook, dominance or privacy. That's all I have to say in support of the application.
Thank you very much. We have one of the ward members present. It's Councillor Kaufman again. Did you want to start off the discussion? If you wouldn't mind, Mr. O'Connor, just switching your microphone off as well, please.
I feel like this is a hospital pass. The problem is this is the 8th, 10th application that's come in on this site, so everyone has got fatigue, but I wish to try and keep things on an even keel, and I am very aware of the upset that's been caused to the neighbours who've suffered over the last few years, because it's not fun to have this type of thing relentlessly going on. And I would like to understand, because there is definitely mission creep going on, and we're dealing with experienced people who own this house. They know what they're doing, and why does it keep coming back for more and more? And my worry is this is only another small building, which how can one object to another small, slightly unusually sited property, or an addition, which is an odd corner, but then will it come back again with another floor and another extension, and it just goes on? And now how can I refuse that? Because that's not good grounds for refusal, what may or may not happen, so I'm not going to go down that route. But I don't understand the siting of this extension, why it hasn't got doors, and what it's going to be used for. So I'd like to see the plans again, and I would be very interested again to hear what others say, and whether we can stop this now. Once this goes through, if it goes through, is that it? If it comes back again and there's an permitted development and then the whole back line extends out, and I've seen that, we've seen that, mission creep, I would be concerned. But I don't understand this building and how it connects to the main house and what it's used for and why it's in that odd position.
Okay, so we've got the floor plans up. Suki, would you mind just kind of talking us through a little bit as to what is proposed compared to the existing floor plans? You're just on mute.
Apologies. So it is a dog-legged extension, and it's correct, there are no doors which lead out. If I just go to that's a window there on the elevations. However, from officers' point of view, refusal on the grounds that it could result in further works down the line in terms of urban creep, whilst I don't disagree that that may happen, we've got to determine the application as submitted and on the impact that this current scheme will have. It's my opinion that the proposal as it stands will not have an adverse impact on the character and appearance of the area or neighbouring amenity. So as a result, it was considered acceptable. But obviously it's for members to determine.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
If I can go to Councillor Sunger and then Councillor Crispin.
Thank you, Chairman. This is really, really weird because, like Councillor Coffin just alluded, there's no doors. But I think the planning officers quite rightly said we have to determine it. We have to determine this on the basis of what we see in front of us and the impact it has. The cars in front of that building, is that a window? I'm sure that's a window that's been shown towards the cars.
No, they're gates. Although they haven't actually applied for these gates. But
No, the actual room,
the rooms.
where that red go down there. What's that window?
Window.
No.
The other side.
No.
The garage side.
Yes.
That's the door into the room.
No.
Where the smaller car is facing towards the junction there.
There.
Yeah, just where your cursor is.
What is that?
Yeah, that's a window.
What?
You know what really would have been helpful tonight is if the actual owner would have come here and told us what that's going to be used for. But of course he's not here. I'm not sure if we can allow the planning, the representative to maybe just interview. I know you don't normally should, and I should know better.
I think as a point of order, it would be wise to not allow the discussion to sort of recede from
it is
the
your
floor
discretion, Chairman.
I would be
just
keen
to clear the air.
To keep the discussion amongst the committee members. Moving on to Councillor Pond.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I'm going to confine myself to the overall summing up of the planning officer, which is, on page 50, the proposal will have a neutral impact on the character and appearance of the application property and wider street, and there will not be any excessive harmful impact on the living conditions of neighbouring occupiers. Well, taking that paragraph, I have to say I respectfully disagree with that. I think the character and appearance of the application property and of Churchill generally, this is an extremely ugly building. It's blocky. It's a bizarre, I think was the word Councillor Sunga used, and I agree with him. A bizarre extension back into the backland, well beyond the rear building line of the property. And it will certainly have a bad impact on the visual amenity of the occupiers of number 73. And we should, in my view, not be consenting these very ugly additions. If it were a well-designed, a beautiful building, as Michael Gove has it, I might think otherwise. But this is functional. It is worse than a 1950s precast garage because it has windows in the front. So my view is that we should find that refusal can be justified, because I just do not think we should be consenting this sort of thing in such a weird position.
Councillor Lyon and then Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman. Could we go back to the plan view again with that inside window? This looks to me, and hearing what the objector was saying about the building site and having all sorts of equipment on site, this looks like an easily convertible into some sort of repair garage with that thing on the back being some sort of accessory to a repair garage. And I know we can't speculate on what it's going to be used for. Crystal ball. But I think it's rather ugly, and it does nothing for the amenity of the site. So I certainly wouldn't be supporting this application.
Councillor Brooks.
Is it possible, please, for the officer to give us any idea if they had a pre-application consultation, please?
No consultation was undertaken for this extension.
Thank you. Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, can we go back to the windows? Are the windows, as I understand it, actually looking out onto the two cars that are parked there? So there aren't any. Are there any windows that actually look out onto the back garden?
There's one to the rear, I believe.
Right. Okay. I'm reminded of what is now King Charles, of course, what Prince Charles said some years ago when he referred to a carbuncle, because this appears to be one.
So I think we've heard various comments about the design of the building and the purpose of it as well. Does any member want to add any additional comments, or should we proceed to a vote? I think we can proceed to a vote on this. So, members, the officer's recommendation is for approval. Can we have a show of hands of all those in favour of the officer's recommendation?
0.
And all those against? And any abstentions?
2.
So, would anybody like to have a go at grounds for refusal? Councillor Pond?
Nearly killed the laptop. Yes, the proposal would have an adverse impact on the character and appearance of the property and the wider street scene of Churchill. It would have an adverse effect on the visual and other amenity of the neighbours at number 73. The building cannot be described as in any any other form than an ugly addition to the neighbourhood.
I would just reword it as poor design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor design, yes, that's a nice...
Yeah, yeah, unsightly and poor design, and incongruent with the current existing street scene. So, members, we have some grounds for refusal there. Can we take a vote on all those in favour of those grounds for refusal? And all those against? And
0.
Any abstentions? So that application has been refused. Moving on to agenda item 14, Laura, exclusion of public and press.
No reason to exclude public and press.
So I officially close the meeting at 8:25. Thank you very much.